So Daredevil Born Again just came out, and I'm just a little bit of a fan. And yeah, we've been eating good with the show, but Daredevil's game appearances have been pretty barren. Like, besides a cancelled game for the PS2 and some mods for Sifu, there's absolutely nothing. And no, you don't count. So while I would sacrifice my firstborn child for Insomniac to make a Daredevil game, I'll just have to do it myself. I started by importing a basic FPS controller that I made a while back to use as a base, and now it's time to start brainstorming. The entire point of a superhero game is to be able to use their powers, so I put together a list of what cool abilities Daredevil has. Okay then, I replicated this by just turning off the natural lights in the scene to make it pitch dark. I guess we're done. Well, that sure was easy. And I'm just kidding. We still have another 4 senses to work with, plus in the comics he has another called Radar Sense, which does exactly what you think it would. To replicate this unique way he views his environments, I created a system I like to call sound pulses. These are pulses of light that I can customize and have corresponding sound effects. By tying these into things like footsteps or heartbeats, I can have you almost view the world through sound instead of light. I quickly implemented one of these into the scene, and it works well enough. Next, I tied a sound pulse to your footsteps, allowing you to see where you're going when moving. I haven't added the actual sounds for these yet, but we'll get there. Although the footsteps are useful, there needs to be some other options for illuminating your surroundings so you can actually find where you're going. The first of these new options is the focus ability. By pressing the C key, you'll be forced still for a few seconds, but in return, a large area around you will be covered by a sound pulse, making it useful for evaluating a large area, but not overpowered or even usable in tense situations like combat. On the other end of the spectrum, I also added wall bumps, which are just small pulses that occur when you walk into a wall, so you don't get stuck walking in place without realizing. Now that you can actually maneuver through the level, I need to add actual gameplay besides walking because I'm not making a horror game. To start, I added an enemy who in no way resembles Among Us. Right now, he's a little dumb and will just walk towards you, so let's give him a stick. Now when he gets close, he'll attack you. Luckily, you also got a stick and can attack him back or parry strikes to stun him. This is also where I added sound effects for real, as now the actual audio has a purpose. Moments before the enemy swings, you can hear his heartbeat, which will also cause a sound pulse. This alerts you of danger and serves as an indicator for when to parry. While I know that this gameplay looks very intense, it's not very impactful. To fix this, I added a raycast to the camera, and if you attack while looking at an enemy, you'll do a short lunge. This makes attacking snappier and means you don't have to be nearly as precise, which is great considering most of the time you won't even be able to see the enemies. Right now there aren't stakes in combat because neither you nor the enemy can die, so I quickly implemented this by giving the enemy an animation and oh, the horror! I'm sorry, my child. You deserved better. It seems I wasn't the only one sad for Mr. Bean's untimely passing, as his brother took revenge immediately after. This is a solid foundation for the combat loop. Right now it's a little too simple, so to build on this I added some new abilities. Now you can use your club to grapple enemies and pull them towards you, which I swear I make look better later. I also added a short dash for maneuvering yourself around. By using these abilities, you can keep enemies scattered and keep your target near ambient sound sources like dripping water, which I'll get to eventually. Oh, and I added a health bar to the top left of the screen. Something still feels missing though. This is Fury. You accumulate it by doing various actions in combat, such as taking or dealing damage and parrying attacks. You can see how much you've built up with this bar in the top right of the screen. Once it reaches 100%, you can press Q to activate Fury and let the devil out. While in this state, everything around you will be bathed in an orange light, letting you see enemies without needing to hear them. This alone, though, wouldn't be too useful, so on top of the unimpaired vision, you will deal increased damage and knockback to enemies, turning you into an unstoppable powerhouse. If that wasn't enough, you'll also heal every time you hit an enemy in this state. With all of these effects, there are various ways to take advantage of the ability. It can be used to quickly thin out the quieter enemies, or hard focus the strong ones, or even be saved as a last resort when your health gets low. And with all of that said and done, that's it for combat, at least for now. While the gameplay is finally feeling like a proper Daredevil game, the visuals are closer to Killer Bean than I'd like, so it's time to fix that. I added new models for the enemies in the player's Billy Club, along with some animations for Mixmo for the enemy. I may not be the best 3D modeler, and these definitely could stand to look a little better, but they function and that's enough for me. Since I'm already doing 3D models, I decided to make 2 more enemies. Here we have the heavy and light enemies. Very original names, I know. Light enemies are pretty simple, just being faster but weaker versions of the normal enemy, but their footsteps barely produce a sound pulse, making them hard to track. On the other end of the spectrum, we have heavy enemies. They have the standard modifiers you expect, with them having higher health and damage in exchange for being slower and louder, but they also will block your attacks. To deal actual damage to them, you have to hit them while they're stunned by a parry. With all these enemies getting fresh animations, the Billy Club is looking a little janky, so it's time to give it some new animations to fit the updated model. On top of just touching up the old animations, I also extended the attack to be a 2-hit combo, which will add some more varied visuals in combat. Another one of note is the grapple animation, which now actually detaches the top half of the Billy Club and connects it via a rope. Alright, I can't keep pretending like these 3D models look even remotely good, but instead of remodeling everything or finding some actually good ones online, I'm just going to add some shaders and hope that fixes everything. Here's the updated visuals, which I accomplished by adding an outline shader to everything in the color red, and making sure that the outline is actually affected by light, so that the old sound pulses still work properly. Finally, I made the base color of every model completely black to make the light less pronounced on them in comparison to the outline, making those the focus. While this does drastically improve the look of the enemies, it doesn't change the fact that the environment is still made of cubes. On that note, I quickly whipped up some environmental models. Here we have an apartment building, fences, a dead tree, the street lamp which causes a sound pulse with the hum of the bulb, and the dripping water which causes a sound pulse when it splashes on the ground. To keep up with creating pieces for level design, I added this text box item, which will show you the tutorial message so that I can introduce the mechanics. I also added invisible checkpoints, but I can't really show those on screen for obvious reasons. Given that I'm already working on UI with the text box, I decided to revamp the main menu. It looked interesting at first, but I think I eventually got it into an acceptable state at the very least. I also added menus for pausing the game and when you die, which just add that extra bit of polish and usability. I also added this epilepsy warning before the main menu, because it was absolutely necessary when the game's main mechanic is flashing lights. Finally, all I had to do was make a level, which really wasn't that interesting, so here is the finished layout. And with that, the game is done. You can play the game for yourself for free using the link in the description. I'm satisfied with the end product, at least until someone competent takes a shot at making an actual Daredevil game. Insomniac, please!